Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Andrzej Mazur. Andrzej, how are
Hello.
you doing?
Hi. I'm good, thanks.
So, Andrzej, we met over the js13kGames, competition. First of all, do you want to tell the audience what js13k is?
Yes, absolutely. It's an online competition happening yearly since 2012. So we already had 12 editions. So that's quite old to say. But yeah, it's a specific competition in which you have to build a game in 13 kilobytes zipped package. So that's quite a challenge, but it seems people like the idea from the start. So it got pretty interesting for some folks since the very beginning already. So yeah, you have a whole month to create a game within those limitations. There's a theme announced at the start, which is August 13th, and then you have a whole month till September 13th to build a game in 13 kilobytes. That's the challenge that people can take. There are a bunch of prizes. There are experts providing feedback, and there's a lovely community of folks who want to help you. So that's something I really love about the competition, is that although it is a competition and you participate to win prizes, uh, there are people who want to help each other, and they do every single year.
Okay. And, first of all, why 13K? Obviously, I understand the concept of keeping it lean, but why 13K specifically and not 12K or, 16K or 8K?
Uh, so this is the very first question and answer in the FAQ on the website. Why 13? And the short answer is why not. But there is the longer answer, reaching out to around 2010 ish, when there was JS1K. So you build something in JavaScript in 1 kilobyte. So I was thinking, okay, so you can actually try to build something that makes sense and is kind of a game in 1 kilobyte, but that's a little bit
Very
that's
limited,
that
yeah.
yeah that's not a lot to build something that you can truly call a game. So I was thinking about something bigger, and at the same time there were a few. So I was a front-end developer, so there was a few front-end developer competitions, one or two. There was a list apart, building a website in 10 kilobytes, and there was another one also 10 kilobytes. So it's like, okay, so 10 kilobytes makes sense. So the 10 kilobytes for the website was the size of the zip. So I was like, okay, so 10 kilobytes makes sense, but it will be like yet another 10 kilobytes something. So I was like, okay, so maybe a little bit different. And then I was like, okay, so maybe 13. And it was like totally random. And I was like, okay, so why not? 13 makes sense. And immediately started thinking about, okay, so 13 is associated with bad luck. So we actually had bad luck as a theme of the very first competition in 2012. The competition started August 13th and ended September 13th. So it caught up really fast, and it went from there. And I seen people really liked it. So it was kind of random, but it got interesting pretty fast.
And obviously, it's stuck now. So being a developer yourself, when you was, figuring out, because you saw somebody else doing like a 1K one, you finally settled on 13K. Did you try and actually make some games yourself and see, okay, is this actually practical within 13K or 10K, for example, and then say, okay, this is roughly, feasible.
That's quite funny because I never actually participated in my own competition. So it wasn't. So I wanted to organize something because there was no itch.io. There was no having like, I don't know, 20 or 30 or 100 jumps happening at the same time. There was literally almost nothing in 2012 around web games. So I wanted to organize something, and we were kind of postponing the start, thinking whether we should do it or not, when it should start, etc. And at some point it was like, okay, it's either now or never. And we literally built designed. My wife is a graphic designer. She designed the first look of the website, and coded it, and we launched it in literally 48 hours. So it was a proof of concept, and we wanted to see, like, in theory, 13 kilobytes made sense. So back then I was building games with Impact.js game engine. Next year, Phaser started. So I was more of a using game framework slash engine type of developer, but this made sense. So I was like, let's just launch it and see what happens. So it wasn't. We didn't made a huge research. It was like, let's see what happens. Let's just launch it. It started. It attracted 61 entries after the first edition, which I thought was a big success because it was like, I don't know. It was announced a few weeks before the actual start. And it was shared in few places that I was active. So I think it was already, for me, it was already a big success the first year, and the confirmation that, yeah, it makes sense. You can build games. We had great entries in the first year. When I was reviewing some of the games, I was supposed to check if they work and then accept them, but I keep playing the games, and I spent like 2 or 3 hours playing the game that actually won the first edition. So it was amazing to see this confirmation that it's possible, it's doable, and people can build really great games within the size limit.
Okay. And have you ever, because as things have advanced, since over a decade ago, with technical capabilities, all the different platforms that have come available, but also what gamers expect. I know it's a competition, but ultimately gamers are still playing it and they have different standards. Have you ever thought about increasing the limit from 13K, or maybe having a second competition, maybe a 128K one, where they have they can do a lot more with it?
So we did have some discussions, like with a community around it, but it was like, so we do have participants who are code golfers, which focus on squeezing a lot into the limitation. That's why many js13kGames participants also participated in js1k. um, so, but I guess the more people would be into having an extra category or something with 1.3 kilobyte zip package than 130 or something like that. We did joke that with the 10th edition that we already had, it would be funny to have the size limitation made times 10. But ultimately, we stick to the 13 kilobytes. Many, like, it's a specific competition, it's a specific requirement. If you participate for many years, you somehow start to feel what you can squeeze into the zip and what you can't. um, so, and I think, like, over the years, you could build a lot more with inside the browser. And there was even, like, in the rules we had, the people were asking if they can use this, if they can use that, if you can use WebGL. and it was like, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. I don't even remember, but we had this question and answer, can I use WebGL? And the answer was, well, actually you can, but it's really extremely difficult to have even like a boilerplate for WebGL to do something 3D in 13 kilobytes, not to mention to building an FPS game, first person shooter. So, and it was kind of a joke to a point that people started building fully 3D first person shooters, and to a point that I actually started linking to some of the entries saying that, oh, actually you can build something like this, and we actually had a Quake clone 2 or 3 years ago, which was like, of course, within the size limitation, but it was like a game with like 2 or 3 levels, sounds, music, different types of enemies, different types of weapons, all that squeezed into 13 kilobytes. And looking at it over the years, I can see that the browsers are getting faster, the capabilities are better, the tools that people use to compress the code are getting better and better. We had a tool called Road Roller, which appeared like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, which shaved off 1 or 2 kilobytes from the entries that people said that, oh, that's everything I can do with my entry. I can squeeze more, I can't compress it more. And then comes this one person and makes this tool, and there's extra space for something. So actually the author of that Quake clone said that because of that tool, he was able to squeeze a big chunk of code to do something. I don't remember if it was like having having music in the game or like extra level or something like that. But not only the browsers are getting better over the years, but also the tools people use, the techniques they are using. So I think there's no need to increase the size because we kind of got used to it and it sounds nice. But it like you can see over the years that the entries are getting better, better, and better. Because a few years ago we were laughing that the entry that ends up on 100th place now would easily win the first competition in 2012. That's how the progress was made.
Okay, and how many? Because you said 61 people participated in the first one, which is a huge success. For a first competition, not having done anything like it before, and like you said, just posted about it a few weeks before it went live. How many participants do you have nowadays? Because you've just ran a competition a few months ago. How many did you have in that one?
So recently we had about 160. That's not the maximum number. I think it was around 2018 or 19 that we had almost 300. Um, this is a bit lower right now, but people in general were saying that they have to worry more about like finding a job or struggling with something. So it's not that easy to actually have time and participate. But I think it's still a strong community. It's still 160 entries because people knew about the competition, or they learned about it because organizing this takes a lot of time. So I don't have more time to actually advertise it. So if you know, you know. If someone will tell you, you will know. If you don't know about it, you won't learn about it from some adverts or promotional campaigns because I literally don't have time for this. But learning about it from other participants, and they those people inviting other folks, that's the best that can happen to this competition, because it's like really friendly competition in a way that we do have people participating for so many years, every single year, to a point that some people have in their Twitter bio, they have game developer once a year or 1 month a year or something like that, and focusing only on this because they don't have time for anything else. Or people literally taking vacations from work to focus on participating in the competition, taking 2 weeks vacation, 4 weeks vacation to go somewhere, then return and then participate in the competition. So that's really impressive. I'm really impressed by that dedication, because people really like participating, not even for winning the prizes, but like participating, be able to not worry about writing good code, but the code that works, which sometimes could be totally different. Plus, we also have t-shirts. Every single year, we are sending differently designed t-shirts to 100 top entries. So people are like, yeah, if I end up in top 100 and get a t-shirt, that's perfectly fine. And plus, they build something, then they can continue building on whatever they submitted as an entry, make post competition version, release the full game if it got enough attention. We had many games being released afterwards and sold on Steam or on mobile markets that originated from an entry in the competition.
Okay, so what's been the most successful games that have, like you said, gone on beyond the competition, been developed into something full fledged and released on something like Steam? What would be, like, let's say, the notable three, and what platforms are they available on?
Um, so we have a bunch. I remember the first one were Evil Glitch and Glitch Buster, which were on the same year when the the Vim glitch was introduced. I think it was 2015 ish, maybe a year earlier, maybe that year. So they both, it was those were the games that ended up on the first and second place overall, and they both got released on Steam, so you could actually buy them there. So it was really awesome to see. But like even recently, there was a game that originated in 2018, but the developer actually built it and released this year. Um, Forgot the name, but can share that later on. And I think that Quake clone, it was Quake, but Q1K3, so it's like 13 inside the Quake name. Funnily enough, the author didn't care about the theme, so they didn't even win the competition. It ended like, I don't know, 10th or 15th place. But it was released, I think, 2 years ago or so. But it got people excited. Like, they were really impressed by the fact that this looks like a full game, and it fits into 13 kilobytes. Like, small screenshots were 10 times bigger than the game itself. It wasn't released anywhere, but it got pretty popular back then, and even like the Quake communities were picking it up and playing and commenting on it. So it was really awesome to see. And another fun fact is that the author of that Quake clone game is the author of the Impact.js game engine I was using back in 2010 to 2012. So it's amazing to see people you admire, people you use their tools, and they just come in and participate. And at some point, we had Notch, the author of Minecraft, participate in js13k. Unfortunately, he didn't submit, but we still have some tweets from him saying that he works on an entry, sharing some progress. So it would be really awesome to find that code he wrote those many years ago. Um, Ultimately, he didn't submit, but it's amazing to see people I admire personally. They just come by and say, "Hey, it's an awesome competition. I'm participating." So it's really great to see.
Okay, so yeah, that is really interesting to have, Notch, participate. Do you know why he chose not to submit? And when was that again? Like, in what period of time relative to Minecraft and like the Microsoft purchase? When was that?
Um, I would actually have to check that. It was definitely a few years ago, closer to 2015 than 2020. Um, I think, from what I understood, because we talked a bit, he was just busy and just didn't have time to actually finish because we had a strict deadline. You had to submit before September 13th, and so he got some time, few days early on in the competition, in that edition, to work on something, but then he had to travel somewhere, was busy with some events, so he didn't actually wasn't able to finish that entry.
Okay. I mean, did you ever reach out to him and, try and get the code off him or ask if he would, participate in a future one?
So I think I asked once, and in general, he follows the competition. He knows about it. He really enjoyed the concept. Would like to participate, but um, I felt that. Well, one thing he mentioned is that if he would submit an entry, the competition would get a lot of attention. That could be good, that could be bad. He have a huge following. Sometimes there are people who are not very positive in responding to your activities. So I felt that he don't want to burden the competition with with attention from people that follow him, which I accepted. I mean, it's his choice. It would be nice to have him submit something, but I do understand it's not all unicorns and rainbows over the internet. So yeah.
Okay, so you've briefly touched on prizes. So what are the prizes for people that enter the competition?
So we do have a whole bunch of different licenses, accounts. So in general, the prizes are about web game development. Um, in the first years, I was trying to get some books, but then shipping a book myself was more expensive than actually just giving people money so they could buy them themselves, or like offering tickets to events which would happen on the other side of the globe, was difficult. So at some point we decided that, okay, we will focus on the digital prizes. So it's like you can win a 1 year Play Canvas account. You can win a Phaser editor license for lifetime. You can win a lot of things. You can win ebooks, accounts, some licenses for graphic editors. You can actually win games, licenses for games that were built as web games and released on various marketplaces. So those are not like, we also had Glitchbuster and Evil Glitch as prizes, of course. And we had that recent game that was released that was based on 2018 entry, but we also had a lot of games. Like, I think 100% of all the games that we offered as prizes were built using web technologies and then packaged and released on Steam, on mobile marketplaces. So it's a way to promote those developers as well. So those usually those are all digital prizes, and we also have what I already mentioned, the t-shirts and various gadgets. So every single year we have a different design on a t-shirt, which we are sending to top 100 entries, along with those gadgets, which are like random things, keychains, bottle openers, pens, stickers, patches, whatnot, plus the usual batch of stickers of our own. So it's interesting to see that people participate for those prizes, for those digital prizes. But they also are interested in ending in top 100 to actually get that physical package sent to them directly, and they can get the t-shirt and wear it. And we collect pictures of people taking selfies with those t-shirts all around the world every year. And it's awesome to see that what we do is promoted by participants. They wear it proudly, and it's really awesome to see it, let's say, in the wild.
Okay. And you're providing a lot of these digital prizes, and is that something that you pay for yourself, or do you have like partnerships and those different software developers, they give like a license for free for the winners?
So in general, I'm usually reaching out to the authors of those tools, or owners of those things that we want as prizes. And like, almost every single case is like, yeah, I can give some for free. So it's like, the collecting prizes is relatively easy, especially if it's like after a few years. It's literally me sending an email, hey, it's me again, it's the next edition. They're like, oh, time flies, here's another 10 codes for something. And so it's great to collect like 20 something different types of prizes, so we can really nicely distribute those to the overall winners, to the mobile category, the challenges we usually have, etc., etc. So, like, the winner of the competition will get like 10 or 15 different things, different licenses or different accounts they can use. And authors of those prizes generally are happily giving those for free as prizes, since they are listed on the website, and they also get promotion. That they also get the promo of being there, being part of this community.
Okay. And as a developer yourself, do you still do any coding? Do you make any games still? And like what do you do as your main job? Like to make money. Like is it based around the competition with ads, etc., or do you do something else and the competition is at the side?
So I'm still calling myself a game developer since we do release games. Enclave Games is again me and my wife. But we make hyper casual games which you can build in like a month or maybe 2 months. And in the past, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, we've released 10 of them. So it's definitely not a full time job. I love to code. I don't feel like an expert in writing code, but I enjoy it. Let's say I write good enough code that you can finish something and release it. And would like to do more of that. But last game we've released was 2020. So it's been some time since then. Because I have to admit that js13kGames competition is my passion, and I really want to expand on it, grow, and the community around it is so awesome that I'm basically focusing on that competition. And usually it takes about few months up to like 6 months, a year, every year to do everything around it because it's mostly me. So plus there is the second competition, the Game Dev JS Jam that started in 2020, which is more open without any size limitation. So it seems my full-time job right now is organizing competitions, especially JS13K, but also the other thing, plus all the activities that kind of don't bring any revenue, like sending the Game Dev JS weekly newsletter, and other things, some meetups, some workshops, etc., etc. So I still have this background. I still have this passion to build some games. I hope I will have time to sit and code something and release another game soon. But I would say my full time job right now is organizing JS13K.
Okay. And these games, that you've made and that, you do continue to make, what sort of platforms do you release them on? Online or Android, iOS, itch?
So they are purely web games, and I specifically don't want to touch native marketplaces because, like, all the benefits of releasing a web game are gone on the native marketplaces, and you're competing with native developers. While I think the web games have their beauty, the distribution platform of just sending a URL and being able to just play it instantly for free, is something that we should remember about. So basically, all our games that we have released so far are hyper casual, small, cute games that you can play anytime and anywhere. They are available for free on our website without any adverts. And the way we earn money on that is selling licenses to portals, where the games will be played by millions of players, and then we will add advertisements or in-app purchases or other ways of monetizing those. But that's basically work with publishers on their portals, while the games themselves are free on our website, and as I mentioned, could be played anywhere, anytime.
So, you're obviously an indie developer yourself. You make games, you run the competition, and a few other things as well. A freelancer, self-employed of sorts. Have you ever thought about just going and getting a 9 to 5 and working for a company, even a games company? and working on bigger projects?
Well, actually, I did. For like many years, I was working as a front end developer or JavaScript programmer in many companies, usually big corporations. Um, it was an interesting job. It was cozy, it paid well. But all the time, I was thinking about making my own games, seeing if you can earn money off of web games, seeing if things that I could come up with will be interesting for other people, trying to convince them that building web games is fun, even if it was difficult back then. So I worked as a front end developer for many years, and around 2012, I decided to explore going full time with web games. And it's the time when our local meetup started, the competition, Enclave Games, releasing games. So I had that cozy full time 9 to 5 job, and I wanted to change something. I wanted to see what are the other options, and I can say that it was difficult, but of course it's not for everyone. But it's interesting to see that you can have full freedom in what you are doing. Of course, that could be difficult at times, because if you don't do anything, you won't earn anything. But it's interesting to be able to explore that and work on your own thing or things, and see if that makes sense. You can do it like in the evenings before quitting your full-time job, and if it's not interesting enough, you can just don't do that step, or you can try if it seems good enough for you. So it's up to anyone to decide. But I did have that full-time job in a corporation thing for a few years, and decided to go on my own.
It wasn't for you.
Sorry.
So that corporate life, wasn't for you, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it was cozy, but well, I don't want it to sound big, but I wanted something more and something different. And I just wanted to explore other options. I knew that back then, 2012 ish, there wasn't much around web games, and I really liked the concept of being on cutting edge of the technology. And back then, building web games was really difficult. Audio was not working at all. There were many performance issues. It was difficult, but it was exciting, and I wanted to try that and see if I can have fun building what I want and earn enough money to pay for my bills, which at some point was good enough to cover the costs. So yeah, if someone wants a cozy job sitting in a corporation, that's perfectly fine. I know people who like that security, and I'm totally fine with it. I'm not saying, I can say again that quitting your job and going full-time indie game developer, that's risky, and many times it won't work. But if it does work, it's really like totally different experience, and you can basically do whatever you want. You can focus on whatever you want, of course, in a reasonable approach, I would say. But you should at least try and see if this makes sense, and if not, that's okay. But yeah, I think it, like, for me, this works nice. I think I built many projects that folks enjoy. It wouldn't happen if I stayed at my job.
Okay, yeah, I mean, of course, you like one, you get busy with your job. Two, there's almost it depends on the corporation, but there's almost a thing like you can't do too much of your own stuff. Like sometimes corporations don't like that, especially if there might be a bit of overlap as well. Even though you might not hurt their bottom line, they can be really, really fussy about that sort of stuff. When you're doing your own. I remember years ago I went for an interview for a job, and because I've been doing various stuff from games, websites, that sort of stuff, and he was online, and I remember the interviewer saying, "At our job, we at our company we make our employees sign a contract stating they won't do their own stuff because we want them to be have their mind fresh to do the code at our company, and you can't do your own projects." And I was like, they wasn't even talking about conflict of interest. They were saying you can't do your own projects, and I was like, that's just crazy. If anything, it would help because it would refine your skills, as a developer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely weird. I remember, like, nobody will tell me what I can. Or, I mean, of course, within 9 to 5, when I sit at the work computer, there are ways in which you can the company can try to control you, but even in corporations it should be more about trust and more about, like, actually reaching goals, meeting and saying, okay, so by the next week you have to implement this feature, and if it takes me 8 hours a day to finish that, okay, but if it takes 1 hour a day and the other 7 I'm improving because I'm watching online tutorials or building my own thing, and while doing that I'm learning more and I'm doing next features even faster, that should be of no concern. And, like, whatever I finished, the we agreed on delivering the feature is delivered. So if I do something in 1 hour a day instead of 8, it's because I learned to optimize this in the past 10 years, and you are paying me for the result, not for the hours. And, like, you know the IT work is totally different from physical work. You can go to a physical work, clock in, spend 8 hours, clock out. While crunching on difficult problems takes time and experience to do it well. So even in big corporations, of course, there should be some overseeing over developers or employees in general, but limiting, like, I think it you can grow as a developer and be better employee if you have time for your own projects, and this shouldn't affect what you are doing. And as I said, if you agree on a specific thing to be delivered on time, you shouldn't worry about someone looking over your shoulder and checking if you're doing exactly that, or if you're learning about it, or if you're just relaxing and thinking about the ideas that you would have to implement that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Like you gotta have that balance, as a manager or a company overseeing employees. Obviously, you can have some, constraints. You want them, to do the work, but then you need to be able to give that freedom, and then you need to be confident that you've hired the right people for the job, culturally and technically speaking, and also that you have the systems in place that they'll do the work, but that you can just leave them to it and then just check in periodically, whether that's like a stand up, like every day or every couple of days, or whether that's an end of week meeting and the sprint planning, whatever it is. It requires that level of trust. Otherwise, it's almost like why hide them? Why just not? Make it yourself if you're constantly just going to be standing over them, because some managers are like that, like they're constantly messaging. Obviously now it's a lot of it's remote, but they're constantly messaging you, and it's like I can't even do the work.
Yeah, and it's really annoying. Like, some people need time to get into that zone that okay, now I'm focusing on fixing this or like implementing something new, and do not disturb, I'm busy, and I will focus on this. I will finish what I need to do, but I need this next few hours. And instead I'm being bothered by, hey, let's have this quick call to catch up, let's meet with other teams, let's do this, let's do that. Sometimes it could be really annoying. So that level of trust is, I think it's needed for people to focus on their job instead of like doing everything else around it.
Oh yeah, having that, focus on that trust, 100% key. So you're clearly into the gaming industry, video games. What are some of your favorite video games to play? And do you play many games still, or do you mainly just make them?
Um, my all-time favorite is Fallout 2. You can tell
Classic
by
game.
by the Enclave Games studio. So this is the one that I have the most sentiment for. Um, I do enjoy playing RPGs. I'm a big fan of Witcher, specifically Witcher 3. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm really 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 enjoying it, to a point that I'm realizing that sometimes I mean, working on your own, you can do whatever you want, so I could just play Baldur's Gate the whole day, the time that I was supposed to work. So sometimes it's difficult to, if you have to do it yourself and nobody is watching, you can get comfortable enough to actually play the games instead of working. So this yields for self constraint, but it's kind of important. I mean, I do try to play hyper casual games to know what's the current state of the market, let's say. But I don't care about it that much. It's not like, I mean, I do know studios which will keep a close track to what's happening, and when there's a new trend, they are trying to develop and release games as fast as possible. um, there was a Vampire Survivors game released, which was originally made in Phaser and was a web game, but then was released on Steam and had a huge success, being a game on itself, no matter the technology it was built on. And there were so many clones released after that. So it, like, Vampire Survivors became a genre of games, to a point that everyone wanted to release their own Vampire Survivors clone. Um, but we, as Enclave Games in general, just want to have some fun building games. There's not much pressure on it. It would be nice to release something that other people will like on top of us liking that games. But it's more about just, building fun games and having fun at the same time. So yeah.
I haven't played Baldur's Gate yet, but every person that I've heard talk about it, they have nothing but good things to say about it. It seems like it came out of nowhere this year. Like there were a lot of great contenders for Game of the Year, and then Alan Wake came. A lot of people are loving Alan Wake 2. Then Baldur's Gate 3 came, and a lot of people are loving that as well. So I think the gaming industry this year has had a lot of exciting titles to get your hand on, all different titles as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you followed the story of Larian Studios, like Baldur's Gate 3 was in early access for a year or for 2 years or even more. Um, since I was playing Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, I was really anticipating Baldur's Gate 3. And so like the whole story behind Larian Studios building the game is like even like a romantic story of how you're not building games this way anymore, and it's like super risky. They put a lot of effort into making this a great game, and I'm happy to hear that they are already starting to win the prizes for the best game of the year awards. And for me, there is like Fallout 2, Witcher 3, and I'm in love with Baldur's Gate 3, and this is the best game I've played in at least few years, at least since Witcher 3. So I highly recommend this. Of course, it might not be a type of game that you usually play, but it's still like I fell in love with it. It's so great that I really have to limit my time playing it, because it would be literally just playing day and night straight instead of working or sleeping or interacting with people. So I highly recommend it, because it's beautifully made, and the whole story behind it, that it was truly built with fans in mind, and making it as great as possible deserves attention. Of course, there are other games even released this year, like there's Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which I'm playing with my 7-year-old daughter, and we really enjoy the game. But it's just different type of experience.
So, what games are you looking forward to that haven't either come out or that you haven't got around to playing?
So I'm not. I mean, of you can say that Grand Theft Auto 6,
Yes, the
but
trailer came
that's
out
yeah,
for that.
literally today or yesterday. Yeah, so but it's like 2025,
Yeah.
so still a lot of time. I would say so. I still have some titles to catch up. In the past years, I was focusing more on either working or playing those hyper casuals. So I still haven't played Cyberpunk 2077, which is a great game. And I've played Red Dead Redemption, the first one, but I haven't played the second one yet,
I mean,
which was
they're
few
all
years
good.
ago.
It's great.
So yeah, so it's still high on my to do list. I have to find the time. So I'm looking at finding the time to actually play those games. And the thing is, I'm a completionist in a way that I'm trying to squeeze 100% out of the game if I'm playing it. So like all the maps, all the quests on Witcher 3, every secret, every quest, everything possible, and I'm doing exactly the same with Baldur's Gate 3. And I'm already after the first act, and I was checking how much time usually it takes to finish the first one, even looking at everything, and I almost doubled the number of hours, because I can spend 1 or 2 hours just looking through the inventory and optimizing the equipment. So and I really enjoy that. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's really cool to hear. It's cool to hear that Baldur's Gate is one of those games that seems to have a lot of depth to it. Because some games, you turn on, there's not much to it. You just get in there. But having a game like that where there is a lot of depth, is obviously great. So what's your platform of choice to play? PC, console?
Web.
Web. Okay, ignoring web because Baldur's Gate, as far as I'm aware, you can't play through a browser.
um I mean, I did. I mean, so I'm using a Mac for work,
Mhm.
and fortunately enough, Baldur's Gate 3 came on a Mac, so I'm playing it there. I had Xbox. I tried some games on PlayStation. I did have a PC. Um, I'm considering buying PlayStation 5, either the Slim or maybe the regular one, for the sake of catching up with Cyberpunk or Red Dead Redemption. Um,
But the Pro will probably be coming next year. So
yeah,
if you
but
haven't bought one yet, I'd say wait.
yeah, I mean, I'm considering Pro, but I'm thinking it could be 2025 with GTA 6.
Mm,
Um, it's still, I mean,
I feel like it'll be next year before.
yeah, I mean, it could be slim, but I'm not like running for it. I'm definitely gonna spend many hours with Baldur's Gate 3 on a Mac. Or laugh all you want, you can play games on a Mac and you can enjoy it. I'm doing exactly that. It's just convenient for me. It's the laptop that I use for work, and it's good enough. It works great for games. So I do play games on a Mac because that's the laptop I'm using for work as well.
What's your Mac of choice? Like, which MacBook do you have?
So I have the M1 Pro, I think, from like uh, a year or 2 years
It'll
ago.
be 2021. That one will be, and that's what, 14 or 16 inch.
14, yeah.
14 inch. Yeah, yeah. That came out
I
in
do have
2021.
the external monitor. I don't use it that much, but yeah, I mean, I don't need high-end devices. I switch my laptops every 7 to 8 years or so. I still have iPhone 7 Plus, so I don't need that much power. But yeah, I mean, so finishing the topic about the console of choice, um, I have to say that I'm also using Nintendo Switch, mostly with my daughter. I literally played Witcher 3 on Switch when it released there, because of the being able to play it either on a big TV or taking the console with me and playing anywhere. But with my daughter, we play a lot of games on the Switch, usually on the TV, and really enjoy that. So, yeah,
Okay, I
the
mean that's
Switch
cool.
is something I can totally recommend if you have an offspring. Then Switch, especially Mario games, are really really lovely.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think Switch is a great system, even if you don't have kids, and even if don't have a partner as well. I think it's a great system to enjoy a lot of games, especially handheld. Obviously, you got systems like the Steam Deck, that have come out now, and that's a great alternative, and we can talk about that in a second. But yeah, the Switch, yeah, I do love it. And my daughter, she's almost 2 years old, so she's not really playing games yet. But I'm looking forward to that age where in a year or two, hopefully, where she can play games, pick up a controller properly, and we can play Mario, together, Mario Kart or Super Mario Wonder or whatever the latest Mario is at the time, and just have some fun. And the fact that you can take it with you, so you can be on the train, you can go on holiday, you can have that with you. You could take the dock with you, and maybe dock it up to a TV, but you don't have to. You can put it on the bed or on a table and just have some controllers. So I am really looking forward to being able to play that. I mean, obviously, the other thing is the Switch Pro, or the Switch Two. The community is still waiting for, and the Pro. I mean, considering how long it's been since it came out, 2017, so it's been 6.5 years roughly. I think next year we might see the next Switch. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah. I mean,
it's
I'm
due.
really looking forward to it, and yeah, this is really valuable time playing together with like two characters, me and my daughter, especially Mario games, and like spending that valuable time. Of course, we have a lot of board games and other things, but so this is only part of like all the activities we can have. But we do really enjoy playing games together. So it's really great to be able to play with her and see how much she enjoys that.
Oh yeah, like see, because again, my daughter's not playing games yet, but yeah, I've handed her my Switch or a controller or Portal, and she presses a button and like the character like jumps up and down, or I was playing Jedi Survivor and she was pressing the attack button, she was just seeing the lightsaber spin, and it was also obviously all flashy lights to her, and just to see her, happiness just doing that, I'm thinking I can't wait till she's actually playing it. And because growing up, I used to love playing games, and now I don't get much time, to play them, unfortunately. But I feel like when my kids are a lot older, it'll be an excuse to one bond with them, spend time with them, but two, I can play more games again. Plus, being able to play it from the perspective of a dad now and playing with them and seeing them develop and grow with it instead of me being the kid. I think that'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had that as well. Like, how old are your kids?
So my daughter is 7, and fun fact is she's already part of the company. We already put her in the credits of some of our games as a tester, because we actually had we also made some games that are suitable for kids, like specifically targeting kids in a way that we had a memory game, like you're looking for the same pairs. And so she was actually playing and testing that when she was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old already, because she saw that we are building games and wanted to try them. And it was so interesting to see her playing the game in a way that we wouldn't expect. So she was like the perfect tester. After the first few minutes, we already had a bunch of feedback. Okay, so this is too small. This needs clarification. That needs something. So she literally helped with some of our games as a tester already.
I mean, that's pretty cool to have a involved. And sometimes with a kid, they'll say things or pick up things that you might not, and that can be great when you're trying to make a game as accessible and as enjoyable as possible. Because obviously, if you've been around for 2 or 3 decades playing games, making games, there'll be certain things that you just think, okay, that's obviously I've got to do that. That's obvious, I've got to press that button. It might not be so obvious to her, but she'll ask the question.
Yeah, if you're working on a game and you really focus on it, you will forget about some, like, you will focus on it too much, you will know it by heart. And that's usually the issue with the js13k games competition, in which people makes games that are too hard because they don't have time to have many people try them. So they build the games for themselves, for them who know how to play them. And then when I see random people not reading instructions and trying to play the games, it's a pain to see sometimes how those games are too difficult for regular participants.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know over the years making games myself, when you're making it, and because by the time you get to the level where the game is, almost finished, or it's got a level of finish that it kind of resembles the final game. You've played it so much and that you understand it so much that most things you probably won't find difficult. I remember a game that I was making. I was actually making it with two other guys, and they themselves said, because I had been the main coder on it, and I had been the main, tester on it, they themselves said, one of the levels wasn't, completable, and like they couldn't do it. To me, I could complete the whole game without dying. So I was thinking the level's obviously completable. I can complete the whole game, without dying. But watching them play it, I was like, okay, I understand that the level is a bit too difficult. I just know how the game works. I know how the physics of the game works as well because he was a brick breaker clone. I know how to if the balls go in there. I know where I should really put the paddle on, how to basically not trick the game, but I know what's going to happen. And as a result, when I was testing it, I was like, yeah, this is fine, even though it's clearly too difficult.
Yeah, and that's why we have a playtesting channel in the competition Slack. And although people would ask for like general feedback, usually it's for last minute fixes of lowering the difficulty, because almost always the very first feedback is the game is too hard, or I have no idea what to do, or this is too complicated, or there's too much text, or the controls are too difficult, or all the other things about when the developer knows what he's doing, and he's too comfortable with his own game, and he needs that extra pair of eyes to tell them that those things are not obvious. You have to make this clear. You have to show this to the player. You have to explain some things. You have to make the pace a little bit slower to learn all the controls. And I think it's really, really important. And you can see from the games that are winning, they are not that much different from the entries that are ending in like top 50, but that extra level of polish, extra level of taking care of someone who is new to the game, or someone who might not have the idea what to do, how to start. This is really important, and this extra 1%, let's say, really makes a difference and decide that this game wins and the other is not.
So, if somebody wants to get into because you've been around game development at, all the different stages, inside, outside, testing a competition, making the game yourself, corporation, all that sort of stuff. Now, if somebody wants to get into game development, they're listening to this podcast, they're interested in the JS13K competition, what advice, would you give to them, especially if they're in the early days of either coding or they haven't started coding yet? They they like the idea of the JS13K and they want a career in games programming. What are your top tips?
Definitely make games. I mean, um, I still remember someone asking a question. Okay, so how do I become a game developer? And so the answer is make games, and it's not like someone will tell you that, oh, now you're a game developer because you made some games. um, it's about, if you build something, if you're working on something, if you're only reading about it, you are already a game developer because you try to make games. I would say try the tutorials, try the materials, look into the source code, experiment, and like improve. I think it's the most important thing is to just build games and try to release them, because you're learning the whole process of prototyping, building the actual game, releasing it, trying to market it, try to earn some money, if that's what you're into. And I think I learned more from trying to release games quickly and then move to the next games, instead of trying to release a perfect game at the start, because I literally traveled around the world with a presentation called "How to Make a Simple Game in 4 Years." in which I rewrote the game 7 times because I wanted it to be perfect, and it was obviously too big for me. And at some point, I just threw it away. I built the simplest game possible, in which you fly in a spaceship, avoid asteroids. It's a side view. I even removed the ability to shoot. I removed everything possible. I only had power ups because they were basically, from the programmer point of view, they were asteroids with extra superpowers. So it was easy to code, and it was so simple that I was ashamed that you can actually release something like that. But it was very early days, and people liked the game. Uh, it was a released game, it was a full product, and I literally started going to conferences telling people how to build web games, having this one game as an example. So it's a matter of trying to build something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a matter of learning how to build games. You can look for something simple, some classics. You can build a Breakout clone, you can build a Flappy Bird clone, you can build any clones you like. There will be plenty of materials on the web about how to do it. And then with every game, with every release, with every product, you will get better and better. And I think that's the only reasonable way to go. Like hiding in a basement for 10 years trying to build a perfect game usually ends up with a really terrible game, or like not even finishing it. That's why I think it's crucial. I learned it the hard way, but building those small games and releasing them, let's say, fast, and then even if I have some revolutionary idea, instead of implementing them in this current game, I'm finishing it, releasing it, and then trying to have that idea in the next game. And I'm learning, like, releasing games, finishing games. That's the crucial skill that you should train. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be well written. If you share the source code, it's not like people will praise the way you write your functions. As long as it works, it could be ugly. 99% of the code in the js13 games competition is ugly because people just want to squeeze as much as possible. The cool thing about the competition is that the source code of every single game of all the years, all of that is available on GitHub. That's one of the rules of the competition, that you have to provide a readable source code. So whichever game you will choose, if you want to see the very first winner of the competition in 2012, or the Quake clone or anything else, the sources are on GitHub. You can read them, you can check how things were built. You can take inspiration from them. But participating in game jams is good in a way that you have a deadline. It's not like you will try to build your dream project for 10 years or infinity. If you have a deadline, you have to release something. And people always complain that, oh, it's not perfect, it's I haven't implemented this and that, and this aspect sucks. But eventually they are winning the competition, because other people liked the game, like the concept, like the prototype of something that could become a full game released afterwards on Steam and make millions of dollars. So if you treat it as a playground, building some prototypes and experiments and releasing them on time, you will be fine. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be big. It have to be small. You can't build big things from the start. You have to start small.
Yeah. I love that because I hear it all the time about people that want to, start a business, make a game, make a website, make an app, whatever it is. They've got the next, big idea. It might be a great idea, but the reality is, like you've, alluded to, if you don't actually have a go and actually do it, you'll never do it. It sounds obvious, but so many people get stuck into the mindset of, I've got the idea. That's the main thing, and like then they like a lot. And I'm sure you've come across it where they'll be non-technical and they think they've done the most important part, and they just want somebody technical to basically work with them. They don't want to pay them. They just want them to basically partner up. The technical person is going to do the code because in their eyes they've done the hard bit. They just need to write some code now and make it work. But 6 to 12 months working on it, and it's all going to be successful.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I mean,
it doesn't work that way.
yeah, I mean, the hard truth is ideas are cheap. I
It
mean,
is.
there are games. I mean, there are cases in which someone literally went to a cave for 10 years and built Super Meat Boy or Fez or
It's
other
rare. It is so.
revolutionary games, but it's like not even 1%. Like, it's a lot less,
Yeah,
and that's not viable in a way that,
that's not the
okay,
average
you can
person.
you can try this, but like not for 10 years. And usually, so this is definitely not the way you should go. This is definitely not recommended. This can happen, but I would even say this is an anomaly, and it's not healthy to try to follow this. Of course, I admire those people. They committed a lot. They committed more than they should sometimes. But ideas are cheap, and if someone is coming with a brilliant idea to a developer, the developer, if he's rude enough, he will say, hey, I have like 100 ideas in my sketchbook that I don't have time to implement. And or I had those similar ideas many times many years ago. So okay, it's nice to have a good idea, but the main thing is how you implement it, and it's almost always the compromise between the perfect idea and the way how it is implemented. And it's quite popular for graphic designers. When they start, they want to draw something beautiful, and they start drawing and it's like ugly, and there is this bias between what they want to create and what they can create. That's why it's super important to train those skills and repeat, train, draw, and do everything to improve the skill, because after 3, 5, 10 games, years, your skill will be a lot higher, but it will still not be perfect in a way that you won't bring that perfect idea to life. There are always compromises, there are always delays, there are always things that won't work, and it's important to let go. That's the lesson for 48 last hours in the competition before the deadline. Things don't work. You have bugs. You have to do something for this to be decent enough to be playable, and that's the important lesson, to let go at some point and call it okay. So this is the prototype, this is the version 0.1, this is playable, maybe people will enjoy it. I have a full list of things I might add later on if I have the time, if I have energy. If people like the concept, you can always work on the next iteration or the next version or the full version. But releasing something is crucial, and you have to remember that there are plenty of ideas. Multiple people have ideas. If they don't have, they can just copy something. It's sometimes it's funny to learn that some games that seem to be revolutionary, and the authors are saying, oh well, I looked at this game and I mixed it with the other and it just came out naturally, and that's it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. And even those examples like Super Meat Boy fairs that you use, and that they spent years making a game, and it worked out. One, it's so rare, and there's so many other things that could work out for you. The second thing is, each one of those guys, as far as I'm aware, it was not their first game. Like they were already developers. They was already game developers, and same with Notch as well. They already knew how to code, and they obviously improved throughout that process. But there's so many people that, again, I'm sure you come across, that have no experience at all, and it's like those examples. They're not even relatable because they have experience. They were good, and they just happened to, when they were good, focus on a project that may have morphed a bit, and then it happened to have been successful. Partly skill, partly luck, partly timing, all of that side of it. But the reality is, it's probably not going to happen, statistically speaking. And again, the other thing you've got to remember is, a lot of people, I feel like they don't want to have this open conversation. Like, why do you want to pursue the idea that you have in your head? If it is 100% purely money, nothing wrong with that. But understand that you could pursue the idea for 5 years or a year or however long, and you'll probably fizzle to nothing. If you're happy with that, outcome, and you really just actually want to make the product and hopefully make a shit ton of money as well, that's fine. But if you 100% only want to make money, and you don't actually care about spending 12 months on the product because you think, oh, there'll be a fun thing for me to make, I really want to maybe play it, or that's a an app that I could actually benefit from, I have friends that could benefit from it, then you're going to be very disappointed at the end. Because the amount of people I've come across, they'll come to me, I've got this idea, and I will, like you said, I'll literally turn it down and say, I've got a bunch of other ideas, I don't have time to do mine. I'm just, busy. I just put my hands on. It's like, I'm just too busy right now. I'm like, if you're willing to pay, we can maybe talk. Otherwise, here's some, options of cheaper people that you can hire, but you're probably gonna have to spend some money. I'll speak to them 12 to 18 months later, and I'll ask them, how is that project going? And they're like, oh yeah, no, I haven't really, I haven't done anything beyond that first meeting, because they had that one rejection because somebody didn't do it, you know, for free. If the idea is so amazing, and so groundbreaking and revolutionary, why would one rejection or two rejections make you not do it? And like you said, ideas are cheap. The graveyard of entrepreneurship is filled with ideas that never happened. Like right now, I can give you an idea that is one of the best ideas in human history: the cure to cancer. If I said to you, my idea is for there to be a pill, you take it once a year, you never get cancer. If you have cancer, you get cured, and there's no side effects. Would you say on the surface that is a good or bad idea?
That's perfect idea.
Exactly, but it, who's gonna make that? And do I have the technical skill and knowledge to make it? No. Does anyone on the planet? Probably not. But as an idea, it's one of the best ideas.
Yeah, and I can tell that so many developers have like literal graveyards of ideas that they started but never finish, and then jump into something new. And if you build games, if you released 5 to 10 games, for example, and you have 100 ideas behind that you left, that's not a big list, because it's like, so few projects are actually being finished and released, and you have this burden of like, those were cool ideas, of course not all of them, but still. And the thing you said earlier about Super Meat Boy and Fast developers having experience building games earlier, that's also crucial, because I think it's people heard about Super Meat Boy or Fez or anything else, and are like, oh, that is an overnight success. They immediately are famous now, and there is no insight into how many years they spend building other things. And I immediately recall an example with Rovio, the authors of Angry Birds. and it's like, oh, they figured out a game, got lucky, and then it's a multi-million dollar business. But they literally built 40 games before they made Angry Birds. So it was years of building different games, failing with all of them, almost going bankrupt, living in a basement, borrowing money to keep going. And then they made the 41st game. It was this one. It was a success, but it's still in many discussions. It's like, oh, they came out of nothing. They made a game, and now it's worth millions or billions of dollars. So there is a whole backstory to every single developer, their struggles, their good things and bad things happening to them, and you always have to remember about that. And I guess either Fez or Super Meat Boy developers didn't build the games because they wanted to earn a lot of money. It was because they wanted to build something, they wanted to have, they wanted to release this, they had this idea, and they really stuck to it, and focused all the time and energy on bringing them to life. And then it coincidentally also was good enough for others to pick up and buy, and that's why they get rich and famous. But yeah, it's an anomaly in a way that you should start small, you should release small games, you should learn. Every single game will teach you something, and then after those many games, you can try to build something a little bit bigger, and grow over time steadily.
Oh yeah, like it's definitely something, like you said at the start when we was talking about this. If you want to become a game developer, become a game developer. Like, start making something. And my recommendation is always, like you said, pick up a clone. Like, pick up Pong, and can you get Pong, which is, I guess, the simplest game ever made. I guess there's some hyper casual games that are simpler now, but Pong's a classic. Can you, from playing Pong online, can you make it so it feels exactly and looks exactly the same, on your own? If you can do that, okay, release that. Again, this is another thing that I've come across, even with developers that are good, is they think that the making, and maybe the idea, but the making and the idea is the main part. And I'm like, there's so much more to it. There's the setting up of, like, your environment. Like, I've come across that before, where you're true, like, people just don't understand. Sometimes setting up your development environment for a particular game framework or engine, that can take a bit of time and hassle, and then it can just suddenly start breaking with a new version update, for example. And then once you've made the game, testing it, getting it to a point that it's deployable, like actually releasing it online on the app, especially on the App Store. If you want to go on, via Apple and even Google, they have certain requirements. You have to have, your file zipped in a certain way. It has to have, certain icons, and they have to be a certain, resolution, certain pixel density. They have to follow a certain naming format. This changes over time as well, and the requirements change, and the API guidelines change. There's so much more to making a game and releasing it than just making the game, and getting it through the approval process. Literally, if somebody says to me, I can code and I've got an idea or I've made a game, versus somebody that says, okay, I've made a Brick Breaker clone or a Pong clone, I've added a bit of a twist on it as well, but I've done it from scratch, from the start, all the way to putting it on the App Store and releasing updates. I'll be like, I'm more impressed by the Pong Brick Breaker guy, because there's so much to, actually putting it out there, and the hassles of non-technical stuff, the stuff that just makes you scratch your head, because sometimes you don't have control over it.
Yeah, and I remember at some point I was helping with some recruitments, and I remember having a discussion that I would prefer to hire someone who made a few simple games and release them, than someone that is sitting in the basement for 3 years building an MMO RPG, but it's still not finished. You can't even play it because it's just one pile of code. It's brilliantly written. There are so many lines of code. It was optimized so many times that in theory it runs perfectly well, but it's still hidden in the basement. And I really prefer someone who release things and is accustomed with finishing tasks, finishing projects, releasing them, moving to the next ones, and like completing the job.
Oh yeah, 100%. Being able to do that it's the same thing as saying I went to university, but then missing out the fact that you never finished. Like it's a lot more impressive if you go to university, do all of it, get a good grade, do some good projects, have good feedback, and then finish it compared to just doing half of it. Like nobody stands there and says, okay, that person just did half of their university or the college degree, and that's impressive. Obviously, I know people talk about dropouts, and they're successful, like Mark Zuckerberg said. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm literally talking about just doing half a degree. Nobody talks about that because that's nothing to praise. Whereas people will talk about, oh, I've got an idea or I've just got the technical part, nailed, but there's so much more to it. There's so much more to like making a game.
Yeah.
So, as we're wrapping up this, podcast, what I would like to do is a, rapid fire fun questions. It's just a, bit of fun to, tone it down and, a little bit of fun for the audience as well. So, are you ready for that?
No, but let's try.
So, the first one, i- would you rather run a 10-person company or a 1,000-person company, and why?
Definitely one instead of 10 because I'm not good at managing people. I prefer doing things on my own. And I was always afraid that enclave games with employees would become like my job would be looking at people, looking at their screens over the shoulder to make sure they are doing what I would like to have them doing, and it would be about managing people instead of doing what I like, which is coding. That's why of course it's not like I'm coding all the time because the competition takes a lot of time to organize, but enclave games started in 2012-ish with me full-time and my wife partially doing some tasks, and it stayed that way. I haven't got anyone into the company beside, of course, my daughter as a tester, but we pay her in sweets.
Very
But
cheap.
yeah, but yeah, it's not a company I want to grow. It's a thing that I do myself, and I enjoy doing that because I have full control over what's happening. I don't have to worry. The expense is low. That's why all the income is in plus. So it's not like I have to worry that I have to pay 10 different people their salaries and if I will manage to earn that or not, if I will have to fire them even though they are good people. So running a company is definitely not my thing. I was asked about it and I was laughing that okay, I could run a company in a way that I would hire someone who would then hire people and manage them, and I could sit there and just watch at the numbers grow. But running a company versus I'd like to be lower. I'd like to code my own game and I'd like to organize my own competition.
Okay, fair enough. So smaller, the better. So, would you rather have $500,000 a year for the rest of your life or $5 million upfront, US dollars?
That's tempting because I know a bit about investing, so I would totally know what to do with that 5 million. So I would definitely. So if I would go for five, I wouldn't spend it or on anything stupid. But given the 5 millions would be there after 10 years of collecting half a mil every year, and then it would still be half a mil every year, while I don't think I have a good enough skill to turn 5 millions into half a mil after 10 years. Then I guess I would go for the half a mil every year, because that would be like a safe bet, like not worrying about earning money, and that would be more than enough for all the expenses, for living comfortably, really good, and then those extra money putting to work as well. But like not worrying about earning money, which is basically the thing with the competition, that I have to find sponsors, because this covers the expenses of my family. This could be sometimes difficult. So yeah, definitely half a mil and having this, uh, safe situation in which I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I would probably do the same, but not focus too much on the sponsorships anymore.
Okay. So, we already covered favorite video game. So, what's your favorite movie and favorite board game?
So about the movie, so I like science fiction in general. I would say the classic Matrix. But like the science fiction movies in general, it's not like Matrix is like, I'm not saying is it's the best movie ever. It just came to my mind as the first one. I do enjoy science fiction movies in general, even those, let's say, lower quality. Some of them are really good in some way as well. And the board game is easy because Neuroshima Hex, which is a Polish game, and coincidentally, I'm running the biggest fan site about it since like 2010, and I'm playing the game since 2006 or 7. So I'm obviously biased, but I really enjoy the game, and running the fun site, and the whole community is really cool, because I can be close with developers. They are releasing new add-ons with armies every year, so it's still active. And I highly recommend playing Neuroshima Hex. I'm waiting for the right time for my daughter to
Hmm.
start teaching her, but it's still about post-apocalyptic armies fighting with each other, so it's not that level yet. I'm pretty happy I convinced I got her into starting learning chess, which is complicated on its own already. But Neuroshima Hex is there and waiting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't played, that, but I would definitely, check that out. And no, final question, two-parter. Does money buy you happiness? And what does a good life mean to you?
Money does help with being happy, definitely. I remember the joke that saying that money doesn't buy you happiness is like rich people telling this lie to poor people so they don't revolt. Um, so it definitely help. Of course, it's not 100% money, and someone with like severe depression will automatically be cured because of that. But in most of the cases, it will help. So definitely, it can help buy you happiness. Definitely, there is a joke that you can't find people crying in a Ferrari. You can after the Formula One races recently, but yeah. And the second part is well, having enough money to focus on doing what you like to do the most, not worrying about much, and being able to work on your own stuff and being able to spend your time with the family, uh, and yeah, just enjoying working and enjoying having free time as well.
I mean, I totally agree. Having something fun that you work on makes money. That you can have time, have a family, have friends, have those relationships. And then being able to enjoy life. Life. I feel like that's something as you grow up, you're more likely to appreciate that way of life compared to when you're younger. You are more likely, if you are work oriented, to be like work, work, work. Nothing else matters. But then you realize there's so much more to it, than that.
Yeah, definitely. There are like so many cases of people, me included, that at some point realize that you can't work 80 hours a week. It's impossible and it's just too much, and it's destroying your own health and relations and everything else. And you have to have some limit. If you're working a full-time job, you just leave a work at 5 p.m. If you work on your own, it's more difficult. You have to set your own boundaries. You have to learn to not work over the weekends or in the evenings, because even though you will have more time in theory, your productivity will go down. You will be not happy with what you do. So the balance is kind of important. So yeah.
100% key. So I just want to thank you, Andrzej, for coming on the podcast today. It was really insightful, really cool to
Uh,
have you on after JS13K. Obviously, for anyone that's listening, definitely check out JS13K and everything else that Andrzej's doing. I was an expert, I was one of the experts on the panel for reviewing the games. Appreciate the opportunity to do that, and I look forward to doing it again in the future as well. So, Andrzej, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this. And yeah, thanks so much.
And thank you everyone else for listening. I'll see you in next week's episode of FireDEV. Bye bye.